Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abbey, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abbey podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. I was about to sit down to record and realized that I did not take one sip of water all day. That is not like me. I normally drink a good amount of water. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. Another episode of Dear Abbey. Yada, yada, yada. I'm your host. You might be wondering, what in the tarnations are you wearing? I just was having not a good hair day, so I showered. And anytime I shower and record, I like to throw on a hat because I don't know how it's going to dry. And it dries in the middle of recording. And so by the end of recording, it's dry and I don't know what it dried as. And in 2024, I'm trying to be more myself and not care so much about how I dress because I do feel as though I need to dress like people around me, or I feel like I need to dress like everybody else. And living that way is very expensive. So I just want to go back to nice t-shirts and all that. I still like to dress up sometimes, but t-shirts are just, I need to just stick with t-shirts. That's what I really want to wear all day. That's when I feel like the most myself. Okay, so we're going to do a couple life updates today, and then we're going to jump into the meat of today's episode, which is talking about validation, validating people's feelings, validating your own feelings, especially with OCD recovery and my experience with that, as well as just some things that I've learned along the way. I definitely still have symptoms and experience it, and I'm still navigating that. So I also wanted to share a little bit about where I'm at on my OCD journey, what I've been doing lately. I just wanted to share a little bit, I think also for myself to open up again about it, because I tell myself that people roll their eyes when I explain my symptoms again for like the 100th time on this podcast, but it makes me feel so much more seen and so much more safe within my own body and then within my own mind when I can relate to other people and connect. So I'm going to go over some of that as well and talk about what exposures I've been doing, how I've been doing with doing my homework and all of that good stuff. And then we'll do a Dear Abbey. I don't really have a lot of podcasts. What am I saying? I don't have a lot of life updates today because a lot of what I've been doing is working. I've been working like nonstop for my job. It's been kind of all consuming in my head. And so even when I get home from it, I'm still thinking of it and it's hard to turn it off. So I don't have a lot of updates there. I've still been going to cycling classes. I've been still dancing, not as much because I haven't had as much spare time to do that. So I've just been focusing on exercises that actually, get the job done. Not that dancing doesn't, but what I do, it's not very high intensity type of workout. And then a lot of wedding planning. I have a lot of help with my wedding. Like we hired a decor coordinator, so she does all of the decor and I just kind of help facilitate it, and also working closely with my best friend who's a florist. And so we've been honing in on what we want, and I'm getting more excited because it's only a month away now, the wedding, which is pretty crazy, and then I'll be married. But as it gets closer, I just feel mixed emotions, which is not shocking. I think that's like the most normal thing to feel. I wanted to do an episode, and I got a DM actually, and I've had other people ask as well about getting married after like you've been divorced, and kind of what that feels like, maybe what I'm going through or what you go through, and kind of how I've even gotten to this point, and honestly why I want to get married. And I do feel like it would be helpful for me also, because I'm a verbal processor, to have an episode about that. So that should be in the next couple weeks before. So look forward to that. We've also been watching Harry Potter. We went back to the beginning. So we started with number 1, and now we just finished number 4. Watching Harry Potter back, I've watched it like a couple of times, but normally I'm kind of not really paying attention. It's like a comfort movie that you have on in the background kind of a thing, especially the first couple because they're not like as intense. But definitely when I watched number 4 yesterday, I was sobbing, and I was also deeply disturbed because I think it's with OCD. I feel very sensitive to things, and I have a lot of the times, but sometimes I'm extra anxious with visuals or sounds or anything, which is kind of part of what I wanted to talk about with my OCD lately. But it has been very connected to sounds, sights, visuals, and I get so triggered by movies, especially if they're like very cinematic. If there's a lot of, like, I went and saw Wicked and I was really anxious for most of the movie, even though I thought it was like a good movie. And I just feel anxious in most movies. We even went and saw Mufasa, the Lion King, like the live action. Well, it's like CGI, and the first like 20 minutes, I was deeply anxious. I was highly distressed. I don't know why, I just felt so anxious. I get so much anxiety at the movie theater specifically. If I'm watching something on my screen, I'm not as nervous. But if it's a big production, like there's a big screen, there's big sounds, I get so overwhelmed. And I've kind of always been like that, but I think sometimes when I'm extra on edge, like I'm just extra anxious and I have this gloom and doom feeling, like I'm just waiting for something to like be pulled out from under me, then those things are so not fun for me to go to. Those things like make me feel so anxious, and I disassociate a lot, and I try really hard during those experiences to not pinch myself, or to do the things that I used to do to feel more in my body that harm me, obviously. So I just try to do some grounding techniques. The reason I bring that up is because yesterday when we were watching Harry Potter, I could barely watch the part at the end when they get to the graveyard after the maze. They took the little key thing, the portal key, the port key, whatever it's called. Then they show up in the graveyard, and then it's a whole thing with Voldemort, and he comes to life. That is like beautifully disturbing. I like was so anxious going to bed after that, and I had weird dreams. I felt so detached from my body, a lot of not feeling real, a lot of not feeling attached kind of a feeling. And I've had a lot more of that lately. If I were to watch that same Harry Potter in a couple of months when I'm not as stuck in an OCD cycle, or when I'm not as stuck in my head, I would probably watch that and I would just enjoy it and it would just be entertaining. But with OCD, it makes it feel so much bigger than like it is. It's just like a movie, but it feels like so big. It also toys with like religious themes. And I don't know, I've just been really struggling with that. And so I've been trying to do a lot of exposures. It's just a weird OCD thing where sometimes you do one thing and it's extremely triggering. And then in a month, it's like you do the same thing and it's like just normal. Okay, I'm going to wrap that up for a second. I was going to talk about validation and then OCD recovery, but I'm going to switch that and just talk about the OCD right now. And then we'll move into the other things, since I'm already on the topic, but I'm doing a switcheroo. So all that being said, lately with my OCD, with certain events that have happened in my family and my life, my themes have really switched up. And so, of course, with OCD, when the obsession changes, it kind of changes the sensations, and it changes how it shows up. So it doesn't feel like it's OCD, which I think that's the most frustrating part about it. And I've talked about this a million times, how it switches themes. I feel like something that I commonly tell myself with this is that I'm failing in some way because I have themes that switch up, and then now I'm struggling with something else. But I don't think that that's really the case. I've been able to handle so much the past couple of months, emotionally, mentally. Like I've experienced just a lot of that constant anxiety that I used to feel like chronically for like years. And it's just hard. It's just not fun to deal with. And it doesn't matter how many times a person has experienced like a panic attack or an anxiety attack or disassociation or depersonalization or anything like that. It's still just as scary. It's still just as uncomfortable. It's still just as painful, sometimes emotionally. So it doesn't necessarily make it easier. But I think The difference is I know that I've felt better from it before, but it has been tempting to fall into a very self-blaming cycle of like, well, I'm doing something so wrong then. Like, what's wrong with me? Which can be so exhausting. I've just been living with a lot of fear again, is how it feels. And I'm having a hard time again letting go of like these really intense self-blaming, shameful feelings and thoughts. I've been having a hard time being compassionate to myself, like the past week especially, and I've just felt really uncomfortable. Like I've just felt really like a lot of discomfort in my body. It's really miserable to kind of be in my body sometimes and in my mind. And I've been through this before, so I know I'm going to be okay. And something I'm having to relearn is that I have to feel through these things. When I feel anxious, when I feel that wave come up, when I feel that doom and gloom, I sometimes don't know what to do with it. Sometimes with OCD, I just like don't know what to do. I just feel helpless. That's like a common feeling. That's a core feeling that I feel is like helpless. It feels like everything's gonna spiral out of control if I just sit with it, and I'm scared it's gonna overcome me or something. And so I've been doing a lot of that work with my therapist and like sitting in that and not disassociating. And if I do dissociate, coming back to my body, but then like actually letting my body feel uncomfortable, not doing anything to stop it. And that's so hard for me to do still. I'm also reminded that I don't have to do it all myself, and I don't have to be the strong person that just like pushes through it, because that can be avoidance. Like I think a lot of the times when people are just pushing through life and people are kind of detaching from life and just doing the same things every day, or not wanting to really feel, it's totally avoiding. It's avoidance. You're avoiding something and you're living your life trying not to feel, and it starts to kind of control your life because you're avoiding something or a feeling. And I've also just been ruminating a lot again. It's really hard for me to turn it off. I also have a hard time with knowing what's rumination versus what's just like normal thinking. I think my obsessions can sometimes turn into what is OCD, what's not OCD. And then I feel like my whole life is OCD and nothing's real. And so then it makes it more confusing. And then I feel like I'm lying to myself. And then it's just like a cycle that I've broken before. But then when big things happen in my life, or when something sad or scary happens, it definitely jumps back up. And I did good, but I don't think I was as prepared. I just think that it's another wave of me learning something. Anxiety, like that doom and gloom, it's really just to describe it to someone. It just feels like your brain is telling you nothing's going to be okay. And so that's why when we hear people say it's going to be okay, it takes a couple of times for someone to say it for us to really be like, okay, because your brain's like, it's not. And so that's why repetition sometimes is key for people like me, for anxious people, or for people who have OCD. Not like reassurance repetition, but even like it's possible to recover. Anyways, along those lines, we've been doing a lot of exposures. Like I've had a lot of obsessions with my heart, with my health. Like when I work out, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. And so we'll do exercises like breathing that'll make my heart pound fast, or make me feel like I'm going to pass out. And I just have to choose to keep doing it. And I'm like, if I pass out, I pass out. I don't know. And that's really helpful for me to remember how to do ERP, and how to, when these obsessions come up and when these thoughts come up, how to respond to them. Because sometimes I do get confused when it's mental. It feels messier. And we've also done watching movies, playing video games that are kind of scary. I've been watching more anime because that sometimes triggers like certain themes of OCD. And so, yeah, we're just kind of doing a bunch of stuff, honestly. As I'm saying this, and I want to wrap up this part of the podcast, I am remembering and realizing that I have gone through this before. And not even just that, but I have conquered this before. I've tried what people have told me to try, and it did work, but I haven't been doing it again, and I haven't been as serious about it and taking it very seriously and making it a priority as much as I need to be. Therefore, this is the consequence, is now I'm kind of falling back. It is relieving almost to think about that there is a way out again, and I just have to do the steps that I did before, and maybe some things have to be a little bit different, and that's okay. I'll figure it out. So now we're going to move on to something I want to talk about, which is how important validation is. I think with OCD or anxiety, you're told reassurance is bad, and it is. But with validation, it feels different. It feels like you're connecting with somebody and makes you feel like you're not crazy, versus reassurance is like reassuring that you're not crazy. But validation, at least for me, feels like someone's being real with you, and they're also validating your experience by saying you're not crazy for feeling that way with your experiences in life and what you have felt, what you have seen. It makes sense why you feel that way. I was thinking about how I need to be better at validating my own feelings, my own emotions, and my own experience. I sometimes tried to intellectualize it, of course, and tried to say, well, logically, I know that's not probably what's happening, but also logically, that has happened in the past. So that's why your body and your brain is feeling that way. So it's okay to listen to your body, listen to your brain sometimes, and just listen to them. Whatever they're doing doesn't mean they're telling the truth as to what's happening in this current situation, but to ignore and downplay maybe some things that you need that are coming up can be damaging in the long run. When I feel validated, I don't feel crazy. I don't feel shame. I don't feel like there's something wrong with me compared to everybody else. Like there's something wrong with you. It makes me feel like my feelings, whether the thoughts that are going along with my feelings are wrong or are right or wrong, my feelings are valid. And it's most likely because our brains are very smart, even if sometimes there's a function that might be misfiring. That is something that it might be dissecting something. It might be bringing something up from your past. It might be bringing something up from last week. It might be doing, who knows what. And that's why you're feeling a certain way. And so my non-professional feelings towards validation are that it's so important to validate your own feelings. At least for me, it has been, especially with my OCD. But I've also been kind of forcing myself to be just totally okay all the time, when that's not the case. I feel anxious because I'm about to get married, and that didn't work out last time, and that's really scary to me, and that's really it's very vulnerable, and I'm scared to be vulnerable again. I'm scared to put like my heart on a platter and have someone crush it. I'm scared sometimes with my faith to like believe that everything's going to be okay, because what if it's not? There's like a lot of situations that have happened in my past that for me bring up certain feelings because that was the reality of my situation. Therefore, that's what I have experienced, and those are my feelings are coming from. And so that's what I'm validating, saying, yes, it was not okay that happened to you. That was not fair. That's not how you want to be treated. Whatever the story is, whatever you need to validate yourself with, and validate those feelings that you're not crazy for having. And validate them by reminding yourself you're not crazy for having those feelings. If you've been mistreated or misjudged or someone was unkind or anything, it's not okay. And it's okay that it hurt your feelings, and you're okay to feel hurt by that, and you're not crazy. And you don't have to downplay it. And you can cry about it. You can do whatever you want about it to help validate your experience and your feelings, because the feelings won't last forever. And the more, you hear this all the time, the more you ignore your feelings, the bigger they're going to get, because they're going to be like, hey, you need to listen to me. I think with relationships, one thing that I've worked on is trying to validate myself and my feelings of fear with intimacy, vulnerability, anything like that, because that was my experience last time. It was very negative. There were some positives along the way, but it ended horribly. And so it makes sense that I feel horrified sometimes. But then that's not all the time. And sometimes when those feelings pass, it's like the sun is shining. I am skipping through a field with the love of my life, and everything's perfect. We're laughing together. We're having adventures. And that's the other side of it. But You're not crazy for feeling the other side, the harder side, the scary side of it too. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not wrong for feeling a certain way. And it can be hard to validate yourself if you haven't been for a long time. It feels very wrong. So it feels like a leap of faith to do this, but it's worth a try. It's something that I'm going to do this next week, and I will report on it next week, is to be more validating of my feelings, especially leading up to my wedding. I think what people misunderstand is when they hear you can validate your feelings, they get scared that you are saying it's okay to, storm off. It's okay to be highly emotional and then take it out on other people and not be able to be mature with your emotions, even if they are big. I think that's something that's why maybe people invalidate feelings, and maybe that's why sometimes even in relationships it can be hard to navigate big feelings. So in a relationship specifically with validation, I try to validate myself so that way I'm not as defensive when like my fiance brings stuff to me that I've done that's hurt his feelings. And when I'm validating my own feelings, I feel way more gentle with his, and I feel more open to his. I'm just more patient. Everyone wants validation. Even if they don't know that's what they want, I'm pretty sure that's what everyone wants when they express a feeling or a concern or something. They want to know that they're not crazy for feeling that sometimes. And then sometimes our response when a partner brings something up is like, well, you are crazy because that's not what I'm doing at all. And I don't know why you're taking it that way and blah, blah, blah. And so through defensiveness, we are totally invalidating their feelings. 100%. That is exactly what you're doing, even if it's unintentional, because now in their head, they're like, wait, am I crazy for like feeling sad about this? And so now they might start to invalidate their own feelings. It's not your main job to validate other people's emotions and make sure they're taken care of emotionally. And that's not necessarily your job, but I do think that in a partnership, it's inevitable that you're going to have to compromise and open up and learn that you need to validate your partner's experience. And one way you can do that is by not getting defensive and by being like, you're right. I'm sorry that I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings by doing that. I'm sorry that hurt your feelings, and I don't want to do that again because I don't want to hurt your feelings again. It can be so hard to say those words because you could have such good intentions with what you did, or you could just have not even been thinking. And so you're like, that wasn't my intention to hurt you. So you can be defensive, but that just further invalidates their feelings, which causes more of like a break in your guys' heart chakra. The more you're able to validate your own experience and your own feelings and understand that they're there for a reason, your partner's hurt feelings are also there for a reason, and it doesn't mean that you're bad or they're bad, but it definitely feels like a leap of faith, even within a relationship, to drop the defense walls and be like, I'm sorry I did that and I caused those feelings. Like, I'm sorry. Even if you don't understand how or why it caused them to feel a certain way, that's not your job to dissect their feelings in that moment and tell them they're right or wrong. That's one of the main things that I learned with my fiance at the beginning, is we were both pretty defensive. We were like, something's not working with this communication. Like, I don't know what. And then I started to really learn about relationships, listen to podcasts, listen to people who have helped, thousands of relationships. And that's one of the biggest things that they talk about. And so once I started doing that and taking that leap of faith every time and trying to drop those walls, even though it's way easier said than done because you think of a million things that they did, it does create less and less space between your hearts. And then eventually you feel like you're on the same page. And then eventually you feel you're both emotionally very safe. And it's okay if your relationship isn't there right now. If you feel like that's something you're both willing to work towards and you are trying, that's really all you can do until you have learned something. Because it's just new. Like, I don't know anyone that's gone into a relationship and they're like so good at never getting defensive and never getting frustrated. That's just not real. You can't tell me it's real. Okay, let's do a Dear Abbey and then we will wrap up today's episode. I've been listening to a lot of K-pop. That's something I forgot. Okay, this is a text. It says, Dear Abbey, lately in religious settings, I've felt my OCD creeping in. I've struggled with scrupulosity along with other types of OCD my whole life, but was only diagnosed about a year ago. Lately, my OCD is questioning everything. Yeah, as OCD does. I feel like I can't feel peace, and and the spirit because my mind is too busy thinking things like, why is blank like this? This is a cult. How would I feel if I was not a member of this church? As well as constantly checking how I am feeling and what I am thinking. It is scary and frustrating, and I just want to feel safe and enjoy my religion like I used to without complications. I know you have shared you have had similar experiences, and you're the only one I've heard of who has felt the same. Please let me know what your advice would be. Thank you. Love you in the pod. Thanks for being my virtual OCD buddy. This is a hard one because this is something that I still struggle with, but this was definitely one of the hardest themes for me because my faith and like relationship with God or something higher than me is so important. And the reason why it's so important is because I just trust that whatever created me and that there's someone out there who loves me and who can give me the best life and make me feel the safest and satisfied and all of those things. This is a theme that was very prevalent when I was young. I would pinch myself. I would speak badly to myself in my head if I had like sexual thoughts or anything like that during church, outside of church. I would be so scared of, like spirits and stuff like that. And ever since I was a little girl, I remember that. And I would pray away, and I would pray all the time. I'd pray for everything all the time. If I felt like if I didn't pray for my dad, but I prayed for my mom, then my dad would get hurt, and then God would blame me because I didn't pray good enough, or I didn't pray for him, and I should have been more thoughtful, and I should have done more to help my family. And so I totally understand the just the complex big feelings that come along with this theme specifically. Everyone's relationship with their religion, or everyone's journey with these things are their own. And so mine might be different than yours. So take all this with a grain of salt. I could do a whole episode on this just because it's been something that has taken a lot of my mental energy and emotional energy and spiritual energy. But basically, I just had to be super honest with myself about what I believed and what I didn't know and what I did know, and also where I'm learning. With OCD, we have a brain sometimes that wants to understand everything. Not understand. It wants to know everything, or it knows nothing. It's very black and white. It doesn't like a slow understanding or a slow progression to something or a slow knowledge. It wants us to understand everything right now, or else we give up, because that's what's distressing sometimes, is trying to figure it all out right now. I got to a point where I think I had a lot of obsessions with like my relationship with God and what that was, and if I was going to hell, and if I was like the worst person to ever live. I had to basically just be like, I don't care anymore. I don't care. Like, you can send me wherever. And I had to basically have an attitude of, you know what? I don't freaking care. Deep down, I really do care. I want to get close to God. Obviously, it's important to you, and it's something that you love. There's something about it that you adore and that you love, which is why you care so much and why your brain is now doing this, trying to kind of help you, but it's just not doing it in a very helpful way. Whatever it is, you can handle it, and God is bigger than your OCD. That's also something that I don't say as much anymore because it became kind of compulsive, but God is bigger than your OCD, and you can always rely on his knowledge and his expertise on OCD. And that can look like leaning into more therapy, or trusting your doctors, trusting your therapists if you feel like they're good. But I definitely had to sit with the not knowing for sure. And I think obviously with OCD, that's the main thing that you need to do, is to sit with not being sure and let yourself sit in that discomfort. And it's very uncomfortable and it's very scary, but you can handle it. And that's how you kind of get out of it. So stop looking for ways to prove that it's all right, and prove that everything is good and everything is great about it and all of that stuff. You can acknowledge the good, the bad, and kind of surrender it all. I have it on my list to do an episode about that, so I'll probably do it soon. But thank you for your question. And you're definitely not alone. There's a lot of people that I know personally who have also experienced this and who experiences still, and I still do, but it all is going to work out for your good no matter what. So that's it for today's episode. I hope that was helpful and made any sense, but I hope you guys have a great weekend. Have some fun, take yourself out, be kind to yourself, do your exposures. If you have OCD and you have been given homework, do them or else you're not going to recover. Anyways, yap. Okay, love you guys. Bye.
taking a ride to journey 눈치 보면서 들어가 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 계속 레인 바꾸는 사람들 시간만